Plumbing Solutions educational series. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about a relatively new tool to the plumbing industry, and it is called a faucet installing tool. This has got a lot of functions on it, does some different things, but they all pretty much pertain to installing lavatory faucets. What you might need a tool for this, like this for, is your sinks. A lot of times you're going to have a flat back like this, and then you're going to have the cabinet right there. It's pretty difficult getting a pair of pliers in on those lavatory nuts to get them tight, because you hit the sink or you hit the cabinet. Before this guy came out, we had what they called a basin wrench, and the basin wrench worked. It was kind of frustrating to use. I didn't like them very much, but you didn't really have much of a choice. Now that you've got this guy, you've got something that's really fast and really simple to use. So let's go over what this thing can do. First of all, they give you this piece here. This one's brand new, so it's tight. This is pretty much designed for your old style basket strainers, and they have this little cross piece in here, and this tool would have gone down in here on those holes and locked in like that. The old ones you kind of had to hold from the top because they had a great big nut here, and either you had a special wrench that you bought to tighten that nut up, or you had to use a large pair of channel locks. The new ones, they did away with that, and they've got a smaller nut at the bottom, a bigger basket here, and you can get your medium-sized channel locks on that. So you don't really have to get in here and hold that from the top anymore like you used to. Now, the older tools you couldn't use on your tub drain assemblies, but they put a little notch in here. And by doing that, you can use this as a tub tool, and there's a little cross in there too, and it'll go in, it'll lock in on that, and you can tighten and loosen your tub drain. You have to use a tool on these guys to tighten and loosen them. They did give you a little hex part here, so you can get your channel locks on there to get a real good turn, and they gave you the good old trusty hole in the side, and that's for a large screwdriver, and you can get in there and get a lot of leverage with a really large screwdriver. The other thing they added here was this little socket in the end of this, and it does fit one of the Delta kitchen faucets, but they're not all the same, and you're not going to use that as kind of a universal thing. But it comes with a tub tool. The next thing, it's got this little nut, square nut thing in the end here, and the first setting on that's kind of an oval looking thing. And what that's there for is for your stops. Most of them have this style handle on them. The old ones were like a little gate valve with a rubber washer in there, and after they sit there for a long period of time, they're really hard to turn, and if you try to grab it with your channel locks, those old brass crafts, you could tear this all up with a pair of channel locks, and then your stop's pretty much done. This is designed to grab around this handle, and it gives you more contact on it, so more surface area, more contact, you're less likely to tear that up. So that's a pretty neat thing. You won't use that a whole lot in new construction, but it is there for that reason. The other thing that this is going to be used for is your plastic little lavatory nuts, these little wing nuts. Now, you can get these tight by hand, but we're doing new construction, and in new construction you don't want any wiggles in your faucets, because if that thing moves around, the people get worried that their whole plumbing system is messed up because of one little loose faucet. So you can get those on hand tight, and then you can catch it with this little, I'd call it like a castle nut, but it's all different shapes and sizes for all the different nuts, and you can catch that and give that extra little turn you need to lock that in. So that's what that is used for. On your little cube here, you got a couple different socket sizes. And this is really neat, comes in really handy. Faucets today, a lot of them they tried to save money on, so they shortened the shank. When everything went lead-free brass, this stuff got pretty expensive, so they were saving money by shortening that shank just a little bit. But it doesn't work too well with the really, really thick granite they've got out there. All your other countertops, it's fine, but that really thick granite that's popular right now, you can't get these plastic nuts on there tight enough to make your supply line connection. It just doesn't give you enough threads. So when I first started, the plumber's trick was to flip this around and kind of squeeze that up into that granite hole, or break those little wing nuts off and screw it up in there. But then you're just fighting with a plastic nut, and it's not really a good way to do it, and it's really difficult to get it apart once you've put it together. So we came up with what we call a Rosette Washer, because it's got these little dimples on it, and what they call a Basin Nut. And this is a really thin, really small nut that when it's on there and assembled right, you've got plenty of shank to get that supply line on there. So we do use these a lot on those thicker granite countertops, and this nut is the right size to fit up in this socket, so you can get up in there and get that thing tight. It's really handy. This works great because you can just get up in there and tighten that by hand. The next size on here, which is pretty neat, it fits this supply line. Now whenever you put a supply line on, always put it on by hand first, get a couple threads going, that way you know you're not going to cross thread it, and then you can take your tool, it's got a slot on it, so it'll slide over this supply line, and then you can get up there, grab that faucet or that supply line nut and tighten it on down and get a good seal. Having this slot here is really neat when you're taking these things apart, because you're not getting up here and twisting this line all around. It sits right in there and unscrews, and it's a pretty neat thing. Ever since I got one of these, I've never gone back to the old basin wrench. I don't even own a basin wrench anymore. I think I gave it away to somebody. But these are great. They'll save you about 5 minutes of faucet, and if you're working by the fixture, or say you've got 10 faucets to install in one day, it just saved you 50 minutes right there. That's pretty much an hour of your life you got back, or you can jump on to the next item. Any tool out there you find that speeds you up, I would go ahead and get it, because it's gonna save you in the long run. Thanks.